I hope you appreciate I'm bringing you music. Rocking old hippie days here today. Johnny. I'm bringing you Leonard Skinner. You never know what's coming on. Oh, it's time to go. Sorry, I was just getting into all the music. Who do we have here today? Johnny and I are here.
there is still not a quorum.
Okay.
Kathleen, Margaret are not here. I think Chris is actually, I think Chris is here.
There's Chris Quinn. Chris Quinn, you should get on the video.
Mike Fry and Margaret are here.
Margaret Peterson?
No, Margaret Fry.
Okay, well, I'm looking for Margaret Peterson so we can have her quorum. Oh, there's Chris. Unmute too, Chris, so that you can be on the board.
And Margaret's joining right now too.
All right, she said she was going to join early so she could be on time. All right, we do have a quorum since Chris is on and Margaret is joining, and I believe Catherine is coming on soon, and that will be a full house for us, which is great. Victor, if you just keep me notified when Margaret and Catherine are on, just so I know. But we can go ahead and start this regular it's a special Town of Green Mountain Falls meeting. It is Tuesday, July 21st. Time is 7:03. And this time, if you'll please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I have no way to know if you all participated, but it's a nice way to formalize and start a meeting. Are there any additions, deletions, or corrections to the agenda as presented? All right, seeing none, I will move to approve as presented.
Cristiani, I second.
All those in favor, please vote by saying aye.
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 Chris? Those opposed, say nay. Seeing none, this motion passes. Item 3 is the consent agenda, which is approve the Board of Trustees meeting minutes from July 7th. And item B, Colorado Interactive Payment Processing Contract for Community Lodging Revenues Integration. Would anyone on the board like to pull out one or both items for discussion? I would like to see just a little bit of information about the interactive payment processing contract, Angie.
Absolutely. So the Colorado Interactive contract is a part of our Muni and Lodging Revs program that's going to go forward. Colorado Interactive is a partner of our SIPA partner, that's the State Internet Portal Authority. So this is a service that we get through SIPA. It's free to us, but the state pays for it. And this contract would just it's for setting up those services so that we can collect payments through Muni and Lodging Revs.
And it's payment online?
Yep. So they can pay short-term rental tax and business license fees. All of it's through this portal here.
Okay, good. Good. Board, do you have any further questions on this item? Seeing none, I move to approve.
Cristiani, I'll second it.
All those in favor, please vote by saying aye.
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 All right, that motion passes. Item 4, new business, temporary Catamount Trail closure at Hondo due to CSU construction. This is beginning August 4th. Let me say now, before we get into discussion, that this does have nothing to do with item 5C. This was not an item that was proposed by us. This is actually due to CSU. So Angie, would you just give us a little more information on that for public information?
Absolutely. So Colorado Springs Utility has been going through and re-evaluating their infrastructure as have many utility companies and utility groups because of COVID-19. They're beefing everything up a little bit. They did have some scheduled maintenance at this 11400 Hondo Avenue during the month of August. And they called and asked us if we would just shut down that spot up there for safety purposes, because the construction, it could be dangerous for hikers in that area. The trail could still be accessed by 2 other locations. And there's a little map here. If you go to the next little, so that you can see here the tank that they're wanting to do work on. And that's where the trailhead would be closed there. The lower Hondo spot, there's a higher Hondo spot that could remain open, and then it could still be accessed from another location on Belvedere.
Okay, so you can still go up Belvedere to Catamount, you just can't go travel on Hondo?
Yeah, just not on Hondo.
Okay,
They anticipate that it'll be about a month to get this work completed. And they would start the work on August 4th.
okay, so essentially it's just the Hondo access to Catamount across the bridge that's closed, but people can still hike Catamount via Belvedere.
Absolutely.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify that. Or do you have any questions of Angie about that?
So I just have a question. Given that this is related to CSU construction, will they help out financially with any traffic related concerns related to rerouting hikers through Belvedere?
We do have a scheduled meeting early next week to discuss actually, no, I think it might be, it's either Thursday or Tuesday. Thursday this week, Tuesday next week, to discuss more of the specifics as far as signage. This actually just came to my attention right before we put the amended packet out yesterday. So we're going to discuss the signage, the closure, the enforcement, and all those pieces. So
Okay.
it's something I can bring up.
Yeah, I mean, we can look at this as potentially an opportunity to help us with some changes related to some of the traffic patterns. I know people have brought up issues with hikers in the roadways. And I'm wondering, given that we're anticipating even more hikers going through Belvedere, could we try and get something like a hiker lane put it on the road, or some type of way to sort of separate the hikers from the road traffic? So that's just something that I was thinking about.
I can certainly pose it with them. I'm not sure if that would be in their project budget, but we can ask. Doesn't hurt to ask.
All right. Honestly, we don't have a lot of choice because it does belong to CSU, but yeah, I would encourage that we get the best we can out of that arrangement. So I would move to approve and cooperate with CSU.
And again, I don't see a lot of choice here, so I'm going to second that motion.
All those in favor vote by saying aye.
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 Chris Quinn, aye.
All right, so that motion passes. Item B is the governor's executive order ordering individuals in Colorado to wear non-medical face coverings. This is for informational purposes only. And Angie, that's you again.
Okay, so here in the memo, there's just a brief overview with some links in it to information about, there's the actual executive order. There's a link there if anybody wanted to read through that. It's just more of a public communication to let people know what the new guidelines are. And then there's also a link to the Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment Q&A, and then an El Paso County informational page about personal protective equipment and cloth coverings, just so that people have some resources available to them regarding this new executive order.
I just read online today that Manitou's also passed in their town council that you must wear masks both indoors and outdoors, which is interesting and just a different step that they've chosen to take. So thank you for everybody cooperating with that. It may not be everyone's first choice, but let's cooperate, try to keep everybody healthy would be my request. Item 5A, Mount Dewey Trail update and discussion. If we can go down to that item in the packet online here. So as you know, Mount Dewey was closed because there was a property dispute. As I understand it, both properties owners have resolved that dispute and obliterated the social path to the satisfaction of the private landowner, if I'm not mistaken. Angie, do you have more information on that?
Just what's in the packet here for informational purposes. I won't run through the whole presentation, but for anyone that is interested, Jesse Stroop, a big thanks to Jesse Stroop. He did put that information together just so that people would have it at their fingertips if they were interested. But they're basically both property owners, from what I understand, are just requesting that the trail be reopened because it's all resolved.
And I just want to, again, echo that. It was a great show of cooperation and dialogue. We've actually have gotten to have a lot of good and constructive dialogue about this, and I very much appreciate it. Or do you have any other questions?
I have a question. So I finally unmuted myself so I can talk. So regarding the information we have from CSU and closing Hondo and the fact that Dewey comes down in that area too, I think we need to be cognizant of that for signage. So maybe at the beginning of the Dewey Trail, up where there's the opportunity to come down or not, down at the falls, we need to have a sign showing people, okay, you can't go down this way, you have to go this way. We need some good markers to route the path so that we keep people from inadvertently going into the CSU project from the back end.
That's very important for safety purposes.
Correct.
But that's really important. So that'll be something that I'll bring up with CSU as well. And the signage and things will likely be, their responsibility.
Okay.
Yeah, good point. Good point. All right. Would someone like to make a motion?
Yeah, I'll make the motion to approve reopening Mount Dewey Trailhead. I'm glad that everyone was able to work together.
Yeah, I'll second.
Board, are there any further items of discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Chris Quinn, aye.
All right, that motion passes. The next item on the agenda, the proposed CARES Act budget. Angie, this is all you.
All right. I'll try not to put y'all to sleep too much because money is kind of boring to talk about. But if we go down to the presentation, the memo sort of really gives just a really brief overview of the presentation. This all started back in March of 2020. Passed the Coronavirus Aid Relief and Economic Securities Act, or the CARES Act. And then they doled some money out. El Paso County, they doled money out to the states. El Paso County received some CARES Act funds in April. The county then voted to disperse some of those funds to local governments via the, and we received those. We entered into an intergovernmental agreement with them in early June and received those in those funds in mid-June. So they're just burning a hole in our pocket. We're ready to spend them. Slide, please. This is a general distribution of how that money was distributed in El Paso County. We received $68,413 here in Green Mountain Falls. Next slide. So the CARES Act provides that payments from the fund can only be used to cover certain types of costs. This is some really detailed information about that, but we can get more into this in the actual budget. That's more for reference. Some other towns, this is what the counties, Colorado Springs and Fountain are doing. In addition to this, Manitou Springs has put out a really interesting a grant program, an economic stimulus grant program for their small businesses. And they're in the process of sharing that money with their small businesses right now. So that's an additional model that didn't make it on this slide. Next slide. Thank you. These next two slides here talk about, the things that we can use the CARES Act funding for. Public health measures, payroll for public health public health and employees like first responders. Economic support, so that an example of that would be the chamber program that Manitou has. Actions that facilitate compliance, paid sick leave, work improvements. Next slide. But I'm sure you saw on the budget that there was a $10,000 set aside for economic stimulus. If that works out, the chamber still has put out a survey to all small business fronts, to our brick and mortar businesses, to get a general idea of what the losses are, and to see if that would be a beneficial way to utilize those funds. So this would be conceptually what an economic support grant program would look like. However, that the details of that are still very not firm yet. So once the chamber receives those survey results, then we'll go back to the drawing board and see if those funds would really be beneficial. And then Victor, if you could go back to the actual budget real quick. Thank you. So here you can see the different areas. You got the public health expenses, the payroll expenses, compliance with COVID health measures expenses such as field work, and the economic support. There is a little bit that is in reserve. It was recommended that we put some funds in reserve. I'm sure you all had some time to look over this. Do you want me to get into the details of it, or did you have some specific questions, or looking good, or?
No, I think this makes a lot of sense. I think you put a lot of thought into where this money would go practically for a town like ours, including the managed porta-johns at the parks and trailheads, which has been an immediate concern. Board, do you have any other questions?
Can you remind me, what's the deadline? Is it September 1st?
Yeah, so we need to utilize the funds by September 1. And anything, I would recommend that anything that is not fully utilized by September 1, that we use it to pay first responder salary. And then, we could reallocate that money elsewhere. But we can use it in this. There's nothing here in the payroll section on that second little part there, but we can use it for a first responder's salary and benefits from March 1st through. So anything that is left over, I would recommend just putting it there so we spend it all, and then we could reallocate the other funds.
Okay, so I have another question here, similar to like HERF. Are we able to, how do I want to ask this? Are we able to compensate ourselves for expenses that have already been done for payroll, or is it for payroll like moving forward, or how does that work?
It's just for first responders. So as far as COVID goes, There hasn't really been a lot of overtime. We did put some overtime in for public works personnel. Those are the only folks that have really had overtime. Mostly that's just because everybody else's salary.
Right.
Like me and Virgil, all those extra hours were salary. But there may be the potential to, I'm working with a representative at the county. There may be a potential to put some of this also into a FEMA grant application, maybe 10 to 15,000. So that could free up some of those funds, some other funds. If we needed to hire a first responder to help with the increase in calls since COVID, definitely. I mean, more people are home all the time. They're in town. More people are coming to town. If we needed to hire an unbudgeted officer to assist with that or more, then we certainly could apply for a FEMA grant for those costs. And that would be a 25-75 match. We could
Okay.
there's funds to be the part of that match. So
And this is a stretch here, and Jane, let me know if I'm getting off topic, but could we justify COVID reasons for hiring somebody to help monitor the safety and the road conditions and even the enforcement of dogs off leash and parking and all of that due to the increase of people here because of COVID?
I think that is plausible. I think that I would probably need to talk to the person at the county that has read the, 1,000 page CARES Act.
Right.
They're
Right, to get extra guidance.
they're like the specialist on just that. If we did have to hire an unbudgeted officer and create an unbudgeted position to do that, or 2 officers, the influx we really believe is because of COVID, and that's the reason that we're hiring them, then we certainly could, like for example, if we did close the trails because of COVID concerns and we needed officers to enforce that, then we could hire unbudgeted officers, apply for the FEMA grant. The FEMA funds you have to pay for and then apply for, but that specific thing is covered 75-25 match.
And my thought is, short of closing the trails, we still need to figure out a way to keep people from congregating, and just overall, I think that would be a possible way to help justify the need for a person, because of the influx of people coming to town using the trails. The sanitary issues, I don't know. It's just thrown out there for conversation and thought, because I understand how sometimes you do need to be creative and you do need to look at every single angle to be able to justify the funds, because you've got to do the reporting on it too. And if you didn't use them properly or wisely, you got to pay them back.
Right.
So we want to be very cognizant of that going into this whole scenario here, because it's wonderful to have this money, but we have to spend it right.
Exactly.
And we have to spend it before September 1st.
Also an issue.
All of this looks really good. I don't know if we're voting on the proposed budget tonight, but if we are, I would suggest that we do that after the discussion about the trails motion, because that is related to COVID, and there may be some new things that we think of that we may want to include.
It could, depending on how you decide to move forward with that could change the way that this could be structured in a more beneficial way long-term for the town. Just thought.
I don't know that it will change a lot, but I am not adverse to just putting this aside until after the next conversation. That's fine. All right, so let's give that one a little pause if no one has any further questions about it. And we'll move on to item C, which is the trails discussion and consideration of resolution 2020-14, resolution of the town of Green Mountain Falls, Colorado, direction the town manager to close all trails and trailheads in the town due to COVID-19 health concerns. Before we get started down this path, I have a pretty lengthy statement that I would just really like to ask people to listen to. And this may answer a lot of your questions. It may not, but it does address a lot of the things that we have been hearing. We've gotten, as you know, we've received many letters to town hall, and sure, everybody knows that Facebook is a place where this is in big discussion. So let me make a few statements, and I just ask that you please listen. First off, we posted this resolution as a point of discussion. The resolution is definitely outlining the most drastic measure, and that measure is the closing of the trails. If we posted something more mild, I'm quite certain that many people would say that's because we were trying to deceive people if we did end up voting to close the trails, and that's a big if. This resolution is a continuation from the previous meeting where we voted to not close the trails, but rather to try to address some of the issues that were brought up. So please keep in mind that a lot of the finger pointing and a lot of the anger was built on speculation and social media of what might happen, not on what will happen. Resolutions change and sometimes are voted down through the public process. We put things on the agenda just for this reason, so that it will come to the public to discuss. Secondly, this resolution was built around COVID-19. None of us knows everything about COVID-19. We do know it's contagious. We know that countries around the world were willing to tank their economies based on what they're being told by experts. It's naive of us to think that somehow we are immune to COVID-19 or that we should ignore all of the opinions that are coming to us from county and state governments. To that end, the previous discussion 2 weeks ago had a serious discussion about outhouses. I still agree with the experts that porta potties can't be properly sanitized, and we as a town simply can't. We don't have the manpower. We don't have the personnel to clean them after every use, and our own outhouses don't have running water and they can't be properly sanitized. But the board went with the requests of the attending public, and we ordered more porta johns to be made available in the town. This was in response to the numerous complaints that hikers go everywhere. I would bet that hikers still go everywhere because frankly, that's part of hiking in the woods. And we can't have porta potty behind every tree, but we do have more porta potties available now in town. This resolution may stay on the agenda going forward in case we do need to make a decision quickly. Don't panic. We're not acting rashly or without guidance or without thought. We're listening to people. We're not behaving as petty tyrants who are trying to take away your good time. We all should monitor what is happening with COVID-19 and we should act accordingly. It's the board's responsibility to do what is best for the town. And if COVID spikes, we may have to make strong decisions and quickly. I hope we don't, but it's a real possibility. So going forward, other complaints and other solutions that have been suggested. Parking and signage. We have received a grant to work on a parking and signage plan. The town manager and the marshal have been working on proposals with that, as well as formulating a group to brainstorm ideas on that. It's in progress. Having parking meters, having limited parking along the street and along the creek, maybe limited to 2 hours or less, having parking patrol and so forth, those are all in discussion, along with the item we just saw, which is the unbudgeted first responder to assist with calls. That could make a real impact. Historic Green Mountain Falls Foundation has put up signs directing hikers to a couple of their properties, including the lot at Joyland. Bathrooms, porta potties were ordered. Hikers behaving badly. Although some people have said that all the hikers are great, no problems, at least an equal number have complained that hikers behave badly. These bad behaviors include, but aren't limited to, walking in the middle of the street, dropping trash, having dogs off leash, parking in neighborhoods, talking loudly, peeing in the street, bagging dog feces and leaving the bags at the side of the road or clipped to residents' cars, trespassing, graffiti, general rudeness, specific rudeness, and not spending money in the town. Board of the bathrooms, that's been discussed. We have multiple dog poop stations. I don't think having any more will make much difference. I can't make people behave better in general. However, we are working with the Trails and Open Space Coalition, that's trailsandopenspace.org, to have a trails ambassador at the land title building on weekends so they can instruct people in trails etiquette and the rules of the town and give them directions to the appropriate trails. It's been suggested that we post COVID appropriate behavior such as social distancing and wearing masks and so forth at the trailheads, and we can have that with the trail ambassador as well. Other suggestions. Shuttles have been explored. Last summer, in fact, a gentleman explored this, but the insurance was $30,000 per year to have shuttles. It's more than our budget can handle. For a private business, the fees would have to be pretty high to cover this. But if you know someone that wants to have a business shuttling hikers, send them to town hall. Enforcement. The marshal's working at maximum capacity and also has 2 reserves. If you don't see him patrolling, please bear in mind that he works shift work and may be in your neighborhood at night. Also, this time of year, he's been getting numerous bear complaints, and that necessitates evening and very early morning work for the most part. He does work every weekend, and the statement that no one is ever here on the weekends is an urban legend. Ideally, we could have parking enforcement in addition. Perhaps that will come out of the paid parking plan in the future. Don't know, but ideally that'd be great. The Trails ambassador can remind people where the parking is and to please keep dogs on leashes. Questions been asked. Do trails bring in revenue? We're trying to figure out that with actual firm data and not just hearsay. So that project's in the works. It's been suggested that we shut down the trail for everyone except residents. That's discrimination. You can't shut down public land to some people and not to others. So we can't go down that. There's also another urban legend out there that Green Mountain Falls trails are on U.S. Forest Service land. In fact, our trails in Green Mountain Falls, if they're not on private property, as we know through HTMFF, they're on Green Mountain Falls parkland. And in fact, if you know that a trail is on U.S. Forest Service land and it's being purported as Green Mountain Falls Trail, the feds take a really dim view of that, and we need to know about it. Board, do you have anything to add to that?
Thank you for summarizing all that. That was, I know, a lot of things to kind of pull together. I put a couple of items, it's just ahead of the resolution. They're just a couple of links to other places. I just want to point out that, historically, in the summers, we get a lot of hikers. So I think we're experiencing that right now. But because of COVID, people are using outdoor spaces more than they normally would. And so we're seeing a large influx and a large impact on our infrastructure related to COVID sort of indirectly. And we do see, if you look online, many other towns, small towns, big towns, they're all experiencing similar things with heavy use of their natural resources because of this COVID influx of people wanting to get outside. So I put those links in there just to kind of show what some other communities have decided to do. Not all of them are going to be great for our situation, but I threw them out there as just some ideas. There was a town in I think it's in Dallas. They had a trail that was just being really heavily used, particularly on weekends. And what they decided to do was try and stagger people. So based on their last name on their driver's license, people A through L were allowed to hike on Saturdays on the trail. People M and higher got Sundays, and they're trying to stagger them that way just because there's so many people, and it's a way to rapidly try and reduce the congestion. So again, not saying that it's something that we have to do, but there are some ideas that are out there. Other places, that have consistently large groups of people that sort of tax their resources and cause harm to their natural attraction. Like I think the second link on there is to a slot canyon. People were going there and they were contaminated with human waste, with trash. They were destroying the trail just because of how many people were coming. And so they implemented permits where they were having people initially charged to enter, but then they ended up sort of escalating that further and having timed slots. And so I just put that in there, not to say that we have to do that, but to show that, you know, that's something that we don't want to have happen necessarily, but there are ways that people can try and reduce congestion. The third link that I put in there is something that Colorado Springs did that I thought was pretty interesting, and it's related to rock climbing. So we have a lot of the things that you brought up in your statement are related to hikers not respecting the natural space and not respecting the community. And so within the rock climbing community, protection of the natural resource is very, very important. And so there's kind of a code of conduct that is followed where you don't do certain things, you do things certain, you also do certain things based on safety, because if you make a mistake, it ruins it for everyone else, and it can cost lives. And so Colorado Springs has a link on their website that just lists out all the basic rules that you're expected to follow. You click a box that says you acknowledge, type in your name, and then it's a free online pass. So you could print it out, you could show it for email, but you're basically acknowledging that you've read the rules and that you're agreeing to be a good steward of the natural resource. And so that was an idea that I thought might be something to think about for our community. Not charging people, but asking them to, you know, acknowledge that they're using the space and that they agree to respect the rules that we have for our town. So those are just some ideas that I wanted to throw out there. So I wanted to kick off the discussion with those.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate the work you put into that. I think those are good ideas and things that, you know, maybe we aren't there yet, but especially the code of conduct. It's nice just to remind people that they are in our neighborhood, and it's nice for them to acknowledge as such that it's not a free for all. So I think that's very smart. Margaret?
I don't have anything to say right now. I'd like to wait until after the comments, just to kind of put everything together, put my thoughts together.
Chris, do you have anything to say? Welcome, Chris. I haven't seen you for a little while.
Yeah, thank you. I think I'll reserve till I hear everything.
All right, Catherine, do you have anything?
Not at this time, thanks.
All right, we will open this up to public discussion. However, let me caution everyone, there's a lot of people who want to have a turn. If you are saying basically the same thing as someone else, please be respectful and just say, I agree, or I appreciate what so-and-so said, because we really want to give everyone a chance to speak. If you are called on and your statement is unrelated to the trails, please ask that you go under regular public opinion, and that way we can just focus on this particular portion of the program. Angie will go down the list and call your name, and we'll proceed.
Okay, the first one on the list is J. Michael Keller. If you'd please state your name and address for the record. And you will need to unmute yourself. I'm just looking through the list here, and I'm not seeing him present. If we've missed you, you can just message the host. The next person on the list is Rocco Blasi. If you'd please unmute yourself and state your name and address for the public record.
Before this agenda item, I had put in to comment on agenda item 5A, and I would still like to comment on that.
Okay, why don't we hold that until public comments if you have nothing on the trails?
Well, I also have public comment, so I'd like to use part of my 3 minutes for 5A, specifically for 5A, and also for this, and also for public comment.
All right, do you want to wait until public comment or do you just want to go ahead now?
So for this 3 minutes, I want to talk about item 5A real quick. Thank you for reopening the trail, Rocco Blasi, 10955 Belvedere Avenue. And thanks to the landowners for coming up to a suitable agreement to reopen. And I'd just like to volunteer to take down the trail closed signs to save Public Works for some higher priority items. So I want to throw that out there for the Mount Dewey discussion, standing by.
And that will be a decision made in town hall. All right, do you have something to say about the trails?
Sure, for the COVID closure, I'll start my 3 minutes. I know it's been a difficult year and the Zoom meetings seem to hinder any kind of back and forth dialogue, but I really think a workshop or other open online forum would have been a better place to start the trails discussion than the extreme measure of the draft resolution, which proposes the trail closure. I contacted El Paso County Public Health Department, received some good options for educating our trail users and other visitors, and those good options are well short of the trail closure. And I forwarded some ideas to the trustees last night. Ultimately, I believe this resolution is both misleading and incomplete. I've consistently hiked our town trails for the past 14 years and continue to regularly do so. I hiked Catamount Trail today up to Garden of Eden, and I saw absolutely no trash or no other issues. That's a firsthand account, and I stand by that. Allegations in the resolution are either unfounded or vastly overblown that there's issues at the trailhead. I believe the resolution's incomplete. It provides no threshold or plan for reopening, and the resolution is fraught with unintended consequences. When we talk about trails and trailheads, who here knows where all of those are? Does this affect the con trail behind the upholstery shop? Do we know that the town's main trailhead is on Lake Street by Gazebo Lake? So if there's a total trail closure, is Gazebo Lake closed? So ultimately, it puzzles me that the resolution was drafted when the town had a standing trails committee, and yet the committee was not consulted for advice. At the same time, trustees, your argument for disbanding the trail committee was that it was not advising you on trails-related matters. So now, when the town needs it most, you have disbanded the trails committee. I point this out to highlight that this proposal is not researched. It's fraught with hearsay from trail detractors when the facts don't support the allegations, and the town's way forward requires more thought and attention. Finally, some perspective. Governor Polis and the Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment have consistently encouraged the public to recreate outdoors responsibly because it's safest and good for mental and physical health. The current health order is in place for safer at home and in the vast, great outdoors.
You are past your 3 minutes. Next on the list is Todd Dixon. Todd, if you would please unmute yourself and state your name and address.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, my name is Todd Dixon. I live at 11045 Iona Avenue, and as has been previously stated, the resolution really focuses on COVID. It's not a resolution for closing trails based upon parking issues. It's not a resolution for closing trails based upon, a handful of potential hikers acting like lunkheads. And because of that, I went to the CDC site, and they actually have guidelines for park administration and trails. And I'd like to quote what they've got. Parks, trails, and open spaces can provide opportunities for physical activity while also providing opportunities for a break, health, and wellness. People are encouraged to use parks, trails, and open spaces safely while following current guidance to prevent the spread of COVID-19. And then they go on to say things like, I've got it on my phone here, sorry. Post information to promote everyday preventative actions, maintaining restrooms, and they actually deal with, they have a note say often restroom facilities without running water, such as portable toilets and vault toilets, are not stocked with hand hygiene. Encourage visitors to bring their own hand sanitizer with at least 60% alcohol for use in these facilities. And then they kind of go on to talk about some things with pools and being prepared to cancel or postpone large events and gatherings. And then they get into playgrounds and social distancing. And then they start kind of getting into more of the staff type activities. And so, you know, I haven't really heard anyone really kind of mentioning the CDC guidelines. And so I just kind of wanted to bring that to everyone's attention. And then, you know, obviously it's up to a local community to decide what they want to do. But in my mind, if we're closing trails due to COVID, then, you know, we should apply that same logic to, you know, the gatherings that we may be having downtown. And I'll be honest, I'm not in favor of it, but, you know, we got Bronc Day coming up, and, you know, if we're going to close trails, or we're going to have to shut down things like Bronc Days and stuff like that. So yeah, I'll be honest, I'm not really in favor of closing things unless the experts are saying to do that. And so I would ask for that to be, you know, taken into consideration. And that's all I have. Thank you for letting me comment.
All right, thank you.
And the next person on the list is Mike Lohman. If you'd please unmute yourself and state your name and address for the record. I'm not seeing Mike's name on the participant list. If we've missed you, you can we can circle back. You can message the host. Next on the list is Judy Piazza, and if you please unmute yourself and state your name and your address for the record.
Sure. Judith Piazza, 11160 Belvedere Avenue, and I've been a resident for 3 years, and I have some things to say. That there seems to be divided issues within this resolution. So the resolution as it stands is based on COVID, yet it brings all these other extenuating circumstances in, like the parking issues and the hikers on the road and things like that. And what so based on COVID, absolutely not. And actually based on any other issues, I would feel absolutely not. But what I would really relish and appreciate is that those who are having issues with parking on the streets, or whatever issue they have, the hikers in the street or trash and this kind of thing, that we sit at the table together and discuss what are the options, rather than any resident becoming threatening physically or verbally to any guest that we have in this town or another resident. So I've been really very upset to hear that there are this possibility and actuality of threatening behavior on the part of some of our residents towards other residents and guests. So I would encourage us to sit at a table. Let's get a group together to look at these issues and come to some compromise. The resolution as it's written does not have any evaluation period. It has no, like Rocco mentioned, no way to reopen the trails. I feel like that is a grave issue. And, you know, we just talked about the CSU, the work up at the water tank and closing an access from Hondo. And I would really encourage Angie and the town to look at and ask them whether they are able to do this a little bit later in the season, so that it's not right in the middle of a summer where we have all this extra hiking. because that means so many more hikers on Belvedere. Couldn't they wait until September 15th? It's still not snowing, it's not cold, and that would be a real plus for our town not to have to deal with extra hikers on Belvedere. So that's a related issue. Please, no shuttles. I would rather have walkers on the street than a shuttle vehicle polluting our roads. And sounds like that's not a possibility anyway, and I'm glad about that. So thank you for hearing me, and I hope to continue to give input as well as hear from other people. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Next up on the list, we have Dick Bratton. If you'd please unmute yourself and state your name and address for the public record. You will need to unmute yourself.
Okay.
It looks like you're still muted, Mr. Bratton. You'll need to unmute yourself. We can circle back around to Mr. Bratton. Maybe he stepped away from the computer or something. The next person on the list is Dory Guyan. I apologize if I butchered your name. If you would please unmute yourself and state your name and address for the public record.
You did very well with the name. It's Dory Guyan, 11055 Iona Avenue. Just a short statement. I'm very appreciative that the Mount Dewey Trail has been reopened. I've been on the trail committee for a number of years. Very much appreciate our trails and what we have available to us and to others who I have always found to be very appreciative also. As has been stated, slight reiteration that even our government and our health departments are saying that it's very good for people to be outside enjoying fresh air. It's good emotionally, it's good psychologically, it's good physically. It's wonderful that we have the opportunity to do this right in our own environment. And the Trails Committee has worked so hard to create these valuable trails, still maintaining them so that they're in great shape for people to enjoy. Please don't close our trails with the expectation that it has anything to do with COVID. COVID means people should be outside. That's where they can maintain health, as long as there's some social distancing involved. Thank you very much for the time.
All right, thank you.
And next on the list is Mike and Margaret Frey. If you'd please unmute yourself and state your name and address for the record.
Okay, am I unmuted?
We can hear you.
Sure.
Okay, I am Mike Fry and my wife Margaret is here. We have a cabin at 11155 Falls Avenue. We own the Painted Bear retail store at 10550 Ute Pass Avenue. It was previously the liquor store. We opened it on May 1 and are selling arts, crafts, gifts, and hiking needs. And we are very much opposed to the resolution to shut down the trails for 3 reasons. Number one, eliminating hikers from Green Mountain Falls will significantly reduce revenue for our store and other businesses in town, and in turn will reduce the sales tax revenue for Green Mountain Falls. Neither our businesses nor the town can afford further deterioration in sales already depressed over the COVID-19 economic environment. The second reason is hiking in the clean, clear, fresh mountain air can hardly pose a significant health threat to hikers. Hikers can easily maintain social distancing on the trails, except when meeting going in opposite directions. And at that point, they can pull up their mask, and do as everybody else does downtown in our stores and crowded events on airplanes. People are sitting 6 wide on airplanes with masks for several hours at a time, and they seem to get along fine. And the third reason, and I was looking at the town's long-range plan, and this resolution is directly opposed to the goals and vision contained in that plan, in particular the goal of increasing sales tax revenue and bringing new businesses into Green Mountain Falls, and particularly promoting the development of small specialty retail shops that can capitalize on the town's close proximity to trails and natural resources, kind of like the painted bear. In our view, this proposal must be viewed in the context of its cost benefit. I've identified the cost to our businesses. That's reduced revenue. Cost to the town is reduced sales tax revenue, and that would be devastating. Hikers stop at our shop to get drinks and snacks and other supplies, and they look around and maybe see something that they want to take home as a souvenir or a gift. We see hikers stop next door at the ice cream shop. They stop at the Blue Moose for a cold drink after a hot hike. They stop at the Mucky Duck in the pantry for a meal. And eliminating hikers will eliminate all this business from which we now have a financial benefit. I'm wondering if the proponents of this resolution have even tried to estimate the revenue loss to the town and the revenue loss to town businesses. The other issue is there a plan to reopen? And if there is, and then we might have a vaccine fairly soon, we chase all these hikers off, then we're going to have to spend money trying to attract them back after the reopening is desired.
Mike, we're
Just over your 3 minutes.
okay. Next on the list, we've got Liz Ives. Liz, if you would unmute yourself and please state your name and address for the public record.
Liz Ives, I live at 10790 Florence Avenue. I have, I don't understand this bit about the bathrooms and unable to maintain the sanitation of that. So I work in a hospital. I've been going to work this whole time. And we have to sanitize in and out. No one's standing outside that bathroom when I go in to clean it when I come out. So the expectation, as is the expectation within the CDC and the WHO and all public health, is that you wash your hands or sanitize your hands. So I would assume that we should be able to provide sanitation or hand sanitizer inside porta-john or our bathrooms, which obviously are going to reopen, or on the outside. And I just can't believe that we're someone who goes needed when they run empty. It takes quite a while for those to run empty. With that, do not believe in the trails, and the only way you could possibly close the trails and would be to close the town, and that sounds ridiculous to me, and I would assume it does to you too. So that's my statement on that, and I do not believe in closing the trail.
All right, thanks, Liz.
Next up on the list, we've got Mac Patron. Mac, if you would please unmute yourself and state your name and address for the record.
Mac, you need to unmute yourself.
Okay, you got me?
Gotcha.
Okay, thank you. In my opinion, the trails need to be closed until a safe means of accessing them can be developed and implemented. I don't think that'll take an awful long time. But if you've seen the photos taken by townspeople of the hikers on Hondo Avenue, you can't deny the fact that they, the hikers, don't wear masks, don't social distance, and don't control their children. As a matter of fact, they cluster shoulder to shoulder, shout at each other and anyone who has the nerve to drive around them, the hikers, to get to their home. I don't expect hikers to walk silently in single file to the trailhead, but 4 abreast is not acceptable. And complaining that residents endanger people just trying to drive home is kind of absurd. Since you let Rocco say something about Mount Dewey, and since I live real close to Mount Dewey, I'd like to make to finish my few minutes here with comments about Mount Dewey. And frankly, it's been a pleasure not having to pick up sandwich bags, power bar wrappers, empty Red Bull cans, and plastic water bottles for the last few weeks. Last Monday, not yesterday, last Monday, I watched a couple walking along the Mount Dewey Trail from the Myrtle Street access. Some hikers are just ignoring the fact that they're closed. There is a cost in having the trails open, and the townspeople should not have to bear that cost. Townspeople don't leave trash and plastic bags of dog crap on the trails. I know there's no empirical data to say that it's the hikers that are doing it, but I'm guessing that it's not the townspeople. Simple logic tells you that the residents aren't going up there taking bags of dog crap and dumping them on the trail, or leaving sandwich bags there either. They have to pay for the maintenance and the upkeep on the roads anyway. And I don't think that any townsperson is going to exacerbate having to what they pay already. So that's my talk, and I'm done.
All right, thank you.
Next on the list, there's Lamar Matthews Douglas and David Douglas. If you'd please unmute yourself and then state your name and address for the record.
My name is Lamar Matthews Douglas at 11145 Hondo. I'd like to say that I agree with Todd and Judith and Rocco and Mike and Liz for all the things that they discussed. It makes zero sense to me to close trails for COVID. That makes no sense. What I'm more hearing is it's the behavior problems, and it sounds to me like we've got money to deal with that. So if we had someone, as they start up Hondo, as they start up Belvedere, to say, get your dog on the leash. As they go into the trailhead, we have somebody to say, here are rules, talk about trash, whatever it is. But I think if there's an authority figure there, you're going to have a lot less bad behavior. You're dealing with the general public. I think 99% of them are great, and you've got your 1 to 5% that are not. And we need to take the responsibility to enforce the rules and spend that money that we have to make that happen instead of defaulting to closing the trails.
All right, thank you. Oh, sorry.
This is David saying the rest of our time.
Okay.
Hi, David Douglas, 11145 Hondo. I'll yield a good portion of my time because, as Lamar stated, everybody who Rocco and Dory and Mike and Todd and Judith all echoed the things that we felt were important. And I'm not going to restate all those things. I think there's plenty of guidance available through federal and state government and county government as to what is appropriate and not appropriate. Even CDC has been pointed out tonight. I just don't think that the town needs to take it to this level to just in a moment decide to close all of our trails. The trails are what identify Green Mountain Falls, and I think it's wrong to close the trails, and so I'm very much against it.
All right, thank you.
I have one other thing to say. I just wanted to thank Miss Lou for her research. Those were a lot of good ideas, and I think those need to be further discussed again to help control crowds and to help control behavior.
All right, thank you.
Okay, next on the list, we've got Clay Gafford. Mr. Gafford, if you'd please unmute yourself and state your name and address for the record.
Clay Gafford, 7045 Oak Street. And the first comment was, I'm a little disappointed that the letter from the Lacasio's lawyer and the photos were not included in the packet. I think it would have been pretty easy to put that in there, and I feel there was a lot of good information that they were trying to get across about the trails being, our roads being used as trails, and the legality by the town's own ordinances against that. That's one complaint, or one of the issues I wanted to bring up. And then the other issue I had was property, according to Teller County's assessor's office, the property at Catamount Creek is not Green Mountain Falls Park property, it is National Forest property. And if you go on the Teller County assessor's office and look that up, it's very obvious that the trails are built on National Forest property. They are not on the town's property. And it's easy to do just on the Teller County site. And you can see what I've discovered there, that they were built on National Forest property. And I feel that it can really come back and bite the town. You can't build trails on National Forest property. That, and what I also said about the Lacasios, I wish that had been included, but that's all I have.
All right, Clay, thank you.
Next on the list, we've got Lorraine Lacasio. Lorraine, if you would unmute yourself and state your name and address for the record, please.
Hello, this is Ralph Lacasio. I live at 10785 Hondo Avenue, and I'm also a former trustee, and I'm going to be in agreement with what I heard from Mac and Clay, because yes, we did submit the letter, we did submit the exhibits, and it shows a clearly unsafe situation. I do want to point out, because I heard some misconceptions being stated about this resolution. The resolution does not just include COVID virus, and that's all I've been hearing, but it also states traffic, parking, pedestrian, and vehicle conflicts. There's much more into this. There are several items that need to be addressed, and I don't think they're going to do it in a timely manner. So speaking as a former trustee, and as we heard from Jane earlier, and as we heard from Mac last meeting, trustees foremost is the citizens' protection and their safety. And when I can't get into my street or drive my street, and I'm not the only one, and I get flipped off because I'm honking, so people won't get out of the way, that is wrong. Citizens are not being protected. And so the real solution here, and if I was on the board, I'd do the same thing. You pass the resolution and then you sort these issues out. They're all new. I'm a civil engineer. We solve problems. Problems are solvable. But safety is not something to be compromised while you figure it out. It's something that needs to be dealt with right now. And I don't think anybody can look at those pictures, and it is a shame that they weren't presented, because it shows a clearly unsafe situation, a huge liability to the town. And I think that it's not unsolvable, but it's not going to be solved quickly. So the right thing needs to be done as a trustee, taking protection of the people. And that's basically that's pretty much it. The only thing I'm going to make, and I'm trying to, nobody has ever told me what the means is of why we allow all these hikers to bring in these issues when they don't really provide anything to us. And we're the taxpayers paying for the trails, paying for the protection, paying for our streets, paying for our taxes. Why are we not put first above the hikers? That one has not been presented. And I haven't heard a good argument at all for that. Thank you.
All right, Ralph, thank you.
Next up on the list, we have Dave Young. Dave, if you please unmute yourself and state your name and address for the record.
I'm Dave Young. My wife Jane and I have lived at 11165 Hondo for a little over 25 years. I was very impressed by the collection of data from other cities and towns and that area. I'm a retired social worker, licensed clinical social worker, working a lot with families. I would urgently request the town, you have the legal responsibility, but I think you need to have a public health person guiding you. People are talking about public health problems, but I don't hear that research has been done or it's been done in conjunction with talking about, talking with, say, the Colorado Department of Public Health. These are very complicated assessments, and these are people who are trained and experienced in figuring out these problems. So rather than build this as mainly a discussion here, I think that's the way to go in. Otherwise, you might be letting yourself up, for. Hello? Otherwise, you might be letting yourself in some legal liabilities there.
Now I can't.
I'm sorry, I'm getting words from, I think, Clay. I don't know how that's happened. I have had some experiences where I had to work with public health, and I would be very surprised if they weren't extremely pleased to work with you, probably to keep trails open, since it appears that that is the healthiest alternative if we can find a way, and I would use them as the best sources for finding ways. I thank you for letting me speak.
All right, thank you.
Okay, and it looks like Mr. Bratton is unmuted, so we could circle back to Mr. Bratton. If you please state your name and address for the record.
I'm Dick Bratton. I'm at 11190 Hondo for the last 37 years. And I've hiked the trails, and I'm one of the people who moved to Green Mountain Falls because of the trails opportunities. I want to thank everybody that participated tonight to defend against closing all the trails. That would certainly be a terrible thing to do. The majority of the citizens, taxpaying citizens, certainly will be upset if you try to close all the trails. It just doesn't make sense. I agree with other people saying that COVID is just a smokescreen excuse to try to deal with other smaller problems of behavior. You're going to throw out the baby with the bathwater. Instead, you should be concentrating on changing hiker behavior, not closing the trails and denying their use to all our residents, our summer residents, and our tourists who support our lodging, restaurants, and bars. That's not the way to go. Serious impact on sales tax, serious impact on retail business owners. It's just too severe. You need to take the time to start looking at alternatives, and you already have some examples from other communities dealing with same problems. But to rush into a vote tonight would be precipitously wrong. You need to take a little time and sit down at the table and start looking at the real problems you're concerned with, hiker behavior, not close all the trails and take those away from our tax-paying people. As far as Mr. Gafford's claim that the Catamount Trailhead is on Forest Service land, that is not true. The Teller County Assessor's site is wrong. They did not change their maps when we acquired that portion of land in an annexation from Teller County, and I have a complete file to prove that.
Now, let's not adjudicate that here. It's not the time for that, but if you would send your file on to Town Hall so we have it for the records.
I will be glad to provide that, yes.
All right.
Okay, and the next person on the list is Susan Davies. Susan, if you'd unmute yourself and state your name and address for the record.
Thank you. Thank you, trustees. Thank you, Angie. Thank you, Mayor. I'm really grateful to be with you tonight. Susan Davies with the Trails and Open Space Coalition. I am the executive director. My residence is up in Monument, where we too have a lot of trails, not far from Palmer Lake, where they're having some challenges as well. I just want to start by saying I'm just really delighted to be listening to these very reasonable and rational comments. I've been listening in on other trail conversations around the region that are not out in the open, that are not public, and that are not offering this kind of careful listening to each other and good ideas. So I want to start there. Our governor's gone on record saying that trails and open space and parks are some of the safest places for us to be right now. They are good for our mental health. They're good for our physical health. And so it does make me sad that the community is considering closing your trails and trailheads. The other day we had an advocacy committee meeting and they did pass a resolution urging you not to close them. I will be taking that to my board of directors next week. But we are willing to help you with a volunteer ambassador program. You folks in Green Mountain Falls are legendary. You have some of the best trail workers. You have people that are so committed to taking care of trails, building trails, maintaining trails. So I have no doubt that if an ambassador program were created at your peak hours, we could get some great volunteers, trained volunteers, that would then encourage people to be making better choices. A lot of what you're talking about is indeed bad hiker behavior, poor choices on their part. But what we need to do is change that behavior and work together to change that behavior and make sure people are walking along the side of the roads and following the leave no trace principles and not leaving bags and all the other things we know that they should not be doing, parking properly. But those things can be changed. If we don't change them, those people are just going to take those bad habits elsewhere. And it's just going to cause more crowding on other trails in our region because people do move here and visit here for our trail system. It's why I live here. It's why many of you live here. So we would love to work with you on something that makes it better and safer to hike for everyone, for the residents as well as the users in your community. We have a program that we started when all this began called Get Out, Spread Out, where we're encouraging people to check out lesser used trails. And I can assure you, we put no Green Mountain trails on our Get Out, Spread Out list of places. We have over 100 choices of places where there aren't as many folks using them. And we're happy to help use that tool with people in your area so they make other choices. But at the end of the day, we would plead with you, continue on your course, continue to look for solutions, and we'd love to help you with that. And please keep those fabulous assets that you have open. Thank you.
And let me jump in really quick. Susan, thank you for the outreach you did with me last week. And so everyone knows, Susan and Angie and I have been kind of going back and forth about working with the ambassador program and how we can get that going. Margaret has kind of made some outreach about where an ambassador could be located. So we've really taken your suggestions seriously, and we're glad and hopeful that we can partner in some way with that. And on to the next person.
The next and the last person on the list is Rebecca Oakey. Rebecca, if you would unmute yourself and state your name and address for the record, please.
Yes, my name is Rebecca Ochkai. I live at 10910 Iona Avenue. And so far I've heard people who want all the trails closed. They see trash everywhere. Traffic is horrible. Other people say the trails should be open. There's hardly any trash. And I'm probably one of those people, because I love the trails here, and that is why I moved here. But I have to tell you, you asked us for solutions last time, and I wasn't ready for that. So this time I propose a compromise. If you feel something must be closed, then close trails on a rotating temporary basis of like 2 to 3 weeks to give the property owners along Hondo and Boulder and Belvedere a break in hiker traffic and vehicle traffic. But it will still allow everyone, the residents and other people, other trails to hike. So not to close everything. For instance, as Dewey has been closed, now that it's open, perhaps we could close another trail, like maybe the Thomas Trail head at Boulder Avenue that I hear is getting beat up quite heavily with Claudia and Jimmy Lee and the people along Boulder. I think that along with COVID, we also have to hear the unhappiness of the people that live along the road that are accessed by the trails. I mean, it's hard for us hikers to understand their point of view, but I think we really have to. I mean, I wouldn't like 400 people walking past my house every day. I would want another plan. And so until we come up with this other plan, I would like to propose this compromise. It's only meant to be temporary until we have better infrastructure with parking and signage and restrooms. And there should be no hiker parking on residential streets. I love these trails, and Dick Bratton and Rocco have done an amazing job getting miles and miles of trails. Again, this would only be temporary. I did not run this by my friends of Green Mountain Falls Trails, and I'm probably not their friend anymore for suggesting this, but I think it's a reasonable compromise, and I think it's compromise that we have to do because honestly, we have not been hearing the other residents' opinions until now. Anyway, thank you for listening. Keep going.
Rebecca, I just want to say thank you for coming to the table with suggestions. I love to hear solutions as well as problems, and I just really appreciate it, and I can see the thought you put into that. So thank you very much.
That was the last one on the list for this.
All right, well, let's circle around back to the board. We had 3 board members who chose to wait until they heard the opinions that were expressed. Chris Quinn, if you're still there, let's start with you.
Hi, thank you. So thank you everyone for your comments, of course. I would say that a lot of what I was hearing is, are things that we could really detach from a COVID perspective, or I think we hear these issues every year when things pick up in the hiking season and whatnot. And I do understand that people want to get out and they don't, there's not a lot of options, and being outside is actually, one of the safer things that they could do. I do like the idea of having, if behavior and behaving badly is kind of the issue, any kind of traffic things, I mean, we have mechanisms to deal with those things with our law, our law enforcement, et cetera. I do like the idea of having some kind of ambassador program or some kind of hiker education, some kind of signage effort. I'm sure we could get lots of volunteers from the local community here just to kind of stand out and, maybe wear a vest or something, and you're just a trail ambassador for the town, and we're just kind of, trying to help you to respect our residents, things like that, and kind of educate them in that manner. But I don't support closing any trails down. I mean, I think it's hand with, all of our other businesses, all of the things that make this town what it is. I don't support closing of trails at this time.
All right, thank you. Margaret?
Well, it's a little fortuitous that we had someone on here talk about speaking with El Paso County Health, because I actually did talk to someone from El Paso County Health today. I was reviewing our plans for moving forward with Bronc Day, but I also had a chance to talk to him and bring up the issue that we're discussing tonight. And he did reiterate that yes, with the current mandates, the governor has mandated that the trails are allowed to be open, and absolutely getting outside and being in the fresh air is something that is really good for people's souls and for their health. But he brought up a few things, and I'm just gonna go through the notes that I wrote down, and I hope, you know, when you write a note and then you look at it and say, why did I write that? I hope that I make sense with my notes that I wrote down, because I was just writing while we were talking. And he said one of the issues regarding COVID would be how to keep people from congregating. You know, so even with all of the parkers, or not the folks that are coming and parking and walking all over the place, you know, how do we have a plan to keep them from congregating? And also to discuss this with our legal, and if we decide to keep everything open, or if we decide to close, whatever we decide to do, you know, what are the real true liabilities for the town? We need to make sure that we're cognizant of that, one way or the other. And then even outside of COVID, there are sanitation requirements that will need to be created. And regarding outdoor activities, he brought up that absolutely, we know science shows that COVID, the risk of contraction of COVID is very low in outdoor activities. That's what science shows us. But again, limiting gatherings of people, control how the trailhead is managed. You know, a lot of this is the cost versus the benefit. You know, it's not easy task for us to maintain sanitation with the limited resources that the town has. This is my comment on this now. And the logistics to be able to make it safe. So, you know, we've got a lot of pros and cons to look at. And one thing that he brought up to me that nobody's mentioned here yet, and especially regarding COVID, no matter what we decide to do with COVID being the issue, one of the big issues that we need to look at is our school's ability to open in the fall. If we want to see that happen, we have to stop the spread. And that's maintaining distancing, wearing your masks, being conscientious. So, and also other things regarding like the cost versus the benefit, parking. You know, if we had paid parking, you know, there would be an increase in use tax. So that would probably not the first year, but that would possibly be able to pay for itself. And I think one of the things that I'd like to encourage anyone that's on here that has brought up their concerns for or against or whatever, and it's like Chris said, I would like to really encourage people to step up, volunteer, and just put your actions out there for us, because, you know, we've got the advisory committee that we need people to come to. I don't know if anyone from the former trails has put their application in for that, but there are 2 slots available there for people to be able to help us with these decisions in the legal capacity and in that part of it. And absolutely, that would be the group that would be able to discuss all of these things that was brought up as well. And I'm thinking that possibly just relooking at the overall, instead of just saying COVID, because we know it's more than COVID, to relook at the reasons and rename all of the reasons. But again, the cost versus the benefit, you know, there's still a lot more that we have to do. And I love the idea of the compromise and alternating trails so that they can have rest, so that they can heal, so that people can go and do work that needs to be done in a safe manner, because in all it's about safety, and the town is who's liable for that. So you know, we've got a lot of things to look at from a lot of different angles. So thank you.
Thanks, Margaret. Catherine?
Yeah, thanks everybody for all the input and not just those in attendance tonight, but the emails that were sent to town hall. I am kind of leaning on the fact that the issues with the trails, I don't know that COVID is the main issue with the trails. If you know, I agree that it's hiker behavior, and you know, the fact that some hikers, you know, think it's okay to have little fires and, you know, camp out and do those things, even though it is posted that those things are not allowed. I mean, a lot of things are posted that people are just ignoring. But if their behavior can be changed, I'm all for it. If we can have a, you know, trained ambassadors that can help in this way, that would be great. I don't really know how successful those kinds of programs are, but you know, I'd like to be optimistic. I think we really need to start ticketing parkers, you know, and if that means that we need additional help with law enforcement in order to ticket people that violate parking, so be it. I mean, that's another safety issue. I mean, it's a huge safety issue. Our streets are not wide enough for people to park on the roads. And, you know, there needs to be a really clear campaign so that residents are not parking on the streets either, not just the visitors. I mean, nobody should be parking on the streets. And maybe some incentive. I mean, you mentioned some kind of maybe a token system, Jane, and I might be kind of misrepresenting what you said, but what I'm thinking is if there was something on the Green Mountain Falls website, let's say, or the Chamber of Commerce website, or the, you know, wherever people go for information about the trails in Green Mountain Falls, that it would be that if you filled out a questionnaire or, you know, took a test about trail etiquette, or, you know, that there would be something, a little bit of homework that somebody would do, and then they could print off some kind of a token that they could use for some kind of discount at one of the local businesses. Just an idea. And so anyway, those are my thoughts, but and I don't really know exactly how we would implement like an ambassador program. I don't know where those people would be stationed, you know, how they would intercept hikers. I'm thinking a lot of them, you know, down around the pool seems to be where a lot of people pass by on their way up to Belvedere, on their way to park along the creek there. I mean, I'm certainly open to ideas. I'd rather not see the trails closed. I don't really think that's that viable solution. Anyway.
All right. Gianni, do you have anything to add after all this? I'm sure Gianni's still on there. There, you're still muted though, Gianni. Can't hear a word.
Okay.
There you go.
Sorry. So I just wanted to say that any path forward, I think we really need to pay attention to a short-term plan, but also the long-term plan. As you stated in the beginning, and I just want to reiterate this, there is a comprehensive parking and signage plan that's already in the works. That's going to take some time to get rolled out. But I want to encourage everyone who's having issues with the hikers to volunteer for some of the opportunities to be part of that plan so that you have input, because now's the time where you can actually make change as that funding is starting to be utilized. So I think, you know, that will help for the long term. For the short term, I do hear what people are saying in terms of they're having concerns about safety, you know, with the hiker traffic. And so I think that we do need to make some type of action to try and address those issues. And, you know, in looking at the comprehensive plan, there are two things that I see in there. And one is that it really characterizes Green Mountain Falls as a tourist-friendly town. The other thing is that people really wanted to focus on Green Mountain Falls as their love of it and being related to trying to preserve it as a small town. And I think we're seeing the two ideas sort of at conflict with each other right now. And so I would be very interested in seeing if we can institute an ambassador program to help target the behavior, to give some relief to some of the residents who live alongside the trailheads, so that we can get some more immediate change while that longer term plan gets rolled out. And so my suggestion would be to create a working group where we could try and get that ambassador plan rolled out sooner and get more information about it so that we could start implementing volunteers on the weekends, just to help correct some of the bad behavior.
Well, Susan has volunteered to help us with that already, and I think that's a great opportunity for us to work with a larger organization that may have issues and ideas and things that we haven't thought about in any way. So I think we really need to take advantage of that. So keeping this meeting moving, let's talk about this resolution first. And I do have an idea of which way it will go. And at that time, let's talk about some other things that we want to work on going forward. But rather than putting words in the trustees' mouths, let's do this. The motion before, well, it's not a motion yet. The idea before the trustees right now is this. It's either approve this, deny this, or continue it for another meeting. And the only reason to continue it would be if there's fears that COVID would get worse. So board, I would suggest somebody make a motion either to pass, to fail, or to continue, not table, but to continue.
I'd like to move to continue, particularly with the changes that are happening in the county right now, and the COVID things that are going up. And I think this also will give us a little more time to work out an ambassador plan, to work out who will be willing to step up and help. And I think at that point, it will give us all a better idea, because if we don't have people helping us with this, how can we not make a different decision? I think it's dependent on us, but it's also dependent on the community to really step up and help. So sorry, that was a more than a motion, but I'd like to move to continue.
Okay, in order that I'm sorry, was that Catherine?
It's Chris, go ahead.
Chris, what did you say that I stepped all over you?
I didn't say anything, but I was going to offer a motion to reject this resolution only. And I hear what Margaret is saying, but I would say we reject this just based on the resolution title and premise. I don't think this is,
okay.
I think the things that we talk about would be, could be contained in a separate resolution, and we just scrap this one. That's just my thought. I could continue as well, but.
Well, in order to keep this moving along in a legal manner, I'm going to second Margaret's motion, and then you can make a counter motion, which you just made after my second. That's how we keep things in discussion.
Okay.
So that's just how that works. So, board, you've heard the motion on the table, and I made a second so that we can discuss. Chris has made a counter. Is there a second to his counter to fail this motion, this resolution?
This is Deani. I'll second his counter.
Okay. Now we can discuss both of these and keep this moving along. I think that's correct. If we do vote to fail the motion, to fail this resolution, I would jump in immediately with all the suggestions of everything we need to do to make the trails a better and safer place. It's as part of that discussion, I would support not passing the motion. However, we do need absolutely to work with Susan and to work with the volunteers who are coming forth to have an ambassador program. I think coincidentally, Hondo's going to be closed because of the CSU. So we're kind of taking advantage of Rebecca's suggestion to rotate some of the trailheads. Even though it was an accident, it is a timely accident. Margaret, what else do we need to jump on to keep these things moving forward?
Well, I don't know. My hesitance with not continuing is then we're back at square one. You know, and I don't know. I mean, can we work on, if we continue this, can we work on rewording? Because I'm definitely not for closing the trails at this time, but I'm for seeing who in the community is going to step up to help. And I'm for seeing what's going to be happening with the COVID measures in the future. And I really believe that waiting until August, 4th, whatever the next meeting is, will just give us a little more time to make a really good, sound decision. And even, I mean, well, we need an ordinance to move forward with this compromise of rotating closures. We'll need to have that in some kind of an ordinance form too. And I hate to see us go back to the very beginning, but I'm not familiar with what we can do to update this particular ordinance to keep it moving forward because of the discussion we've already had. I don't want to go back to square one.
Well,
that's my thought.
We can certainly introduce an ordinance. We can certainly introduce an ordinance altogether, a new one that is to improve what? Improve behavior, improve concerns. How about that? Improve concerns on the trails, because we definitely have concerns. That's not a one and done.
Concerns and safety.
Concerns and safety. But I would think that we're mostly in agreement that we're not shutting any trails, especially due to COVID, but we definitely have other concerns.
Madam Mayor, may I make a comment?
Please do.
Okay. So I think that I just want to add some information in here. We are getting a lot of applications for the new Parks, Rec, and Trails Committee.
Oh, good.
And so those should be on the 8-4 agenda. So we can get people appointed on that we can get that new group together and hopefully kick that off pretty soon. I'm wondering if a member of the board might be interested in facilitating that group. But a lot of this public education and behavioral change stuff could be one of the first things that the Park, Rec, and Trails Group Advisory Board works on. It's definitely something that an advisory board would typically work on. Even surveying, say, for example, just a random example, how much benefit the hikers bring to our local businesses. that sort of thing would be something an advisory board would work on. And then they would come to the Board of Trustees with their data and a proposal for a solution or a couple different solutions. And then they could also work with Susan and come up with this ambassador program to present to the trustees. And hopefully if we can get those applications, hopefully everybody wants to be part of the solution, and they're already working on their application right now. And they're going to send it in town hall first thing in the morning, so we can put all those on 8/4 and really get the ball rolling on some of these things. That would be my suggestion, but it is.
I think that's a great suggestion, because who wouldn't be energized by this conversation? So.
And just to point out, the last link that was on those links that I had posted, one of the towns that was kind of their solution was to create a working group that could meet more regularly, that could get opinions from the community, because the issues related to COVID are constantly changing, and they're changing rapidly. Having a working group that can bring information to the board, since the board typically only meets once a month, sometimes a working group can be more helpful to facilitate communication in between then. And so I would suggest a working group. If we can get the Parks and Rec and Trails Committee up and running rather quickly, then that can serve as a working group. But I think that's having communication and discussion and figuring out solutions quickly. I think that's the best bet.
I agree, and what I like about this new working group, it will also bring in our parks, because the parks are going to be facing very much the same situation, especially in conjunction with parking and social distancing. So that way we don't have such a separation, and and that group looks at all those issues together. So,
then I feel more confident knowing that there are already applications in process, because that was my biggest concern, is if we don't continue this and if we just stop this, not having the people willing to help, because we just really need that confirmation in writing. So should I remove my continuance motion?
You can, or we can just.
Happening with parking, but the other Angie, how's that going as far as getting volunteers to help with that project?
With that project, so we do have a few volunteers. Victor has been, he's got a list going, but we definitely need some more to help with, number one, the signage mapping. We need 16 volunteers or 8 volunteers that want to do double the work. But it's, the work that we have would maybe take half of a lazy Saturday for one person. So if somebody had a full Saturday to donate, then they'd be done with, 2/8 of the work, or 2/16, yeah, a fourth of the work. I don't know, a lot of the work.
Well, I'm sending it out to
Victor
that'll help with mapping.
Yeah, that'd be great if anybody
Yes.
Open to doing that.
Sign me up.
Great.
All right, Catherine and I are willing to do some mapping work, and I'm sure lots of other people who like to walk out there will be willing to do that. Right now, we actually have 2 motions on the table, which is unusual and weird, and I let that get out of control a little bit. However, the first motion is to continue the this until the next meeting, this resolution. All those in favor of continuing, vote by saying aye.
Aye.
All right, you don't have to vote, Margaret, it's okay.
Well, it's okay.
Okay.
That's
And
why I was just trying to understand how it works, since this is a unique scenario here.
right, awkward. Those opposed, vote by saying no.
No.
All right, so this motion fails. The next motion on the table. Catherine, what did you say?
I was a
A yes? You're breaking up. Give me a thumbs up. You voted yes on that. Okay. So 2-2 on that. I would actually vote no on a continuance, which takes us to the next resolution, which is in opposition, which is to vote to deny or fail this resolution with the acknowledgement that we need to get a lot more work from the Open Space Committee, and I mean right away. So those supporting the failure of this resolution, vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Quinn, aye.
Tiani?
Right?
Aye.
Is it yes or no? Yes.
Aye.
Aye. And Catherine? And Catherine, are you voting to fail this, or are you voting no, which actually
I will vote.
to
I will vote to fail, yes.
someone's getting all these, I'm not. So this motion passes as to not have this resolution, but let's again completely and firmly acknowledge that we have issues. We are working on them. We have a committee in place that's going to move forward with this. All right.
There's definitely important issues there. Yes.
There's hugely important issues, and I don't think we can ignore them. I think we need to be very smart about it. I will reiterate that the whole country's in a state of flux as far as health goes, and we all need to be very smart in keeping an eye on what's going on. I mean, for myself personally, school has got to start in the fall, and I think I know where my priority is with that, and I hope everybody's is. So what is the next item on the agenda?
Madam Mayor, could I just throw one more thing out there about
Please do.
I would just like to, mostly for members of the public who came, I want to thank everybody for their comments and taking the time to do that. And just as a reminder that these challenges have been around for a long time and they were years in the making. And while we all want to fix it today, it will take some time. And it will go through a public process, which is what makes a community a great thing. But I think around next summer, we probably really should see a big difference. And I just wanted to throw that reminder out there that we're moving in the right direction. And somebody just sent an email 2 seconds ago about volunteering, so keep those coming.
Yay.
And agreed, I really do appreciate everyone taking the time and the consideration to make comments. Making public comments is not always the easiest thing. And I always feel kind of bad because I know there's people who are shy or feel intimidated to speak publicly. And I just appreciate people taking the effort. It's not always easy, and I know it means a lot, and it sure means a lot to me. So Angie, thanks for bringing that up. The last item is public input. If you have input on anything other than the trails, please do so. Angie will call your name. Let me remind you that since it is not an agendized item, we can't really address it, but we can direct it to the proper department within the town, or we can research and discuss on a future agenda. So if there is anyone, Angie?
I had 4 people sign up for general public comment. The first on the list was Rocco Blasi. If you'd please yourself and state your name and address for the record.
Hi, Rocco Blasi, 10955 Belvedere Avenue. I want to clarify a few things. Ralph Locascio, your tax money has not paid for our town trails. That was all funded by private donations. Just to recap from last meeting, an extensively rewritten ordinance was dropped a bare minimum 24 hours before the July 7th meeting. The item was not time critical. I asked for time to discuss within the committees and boards that were affected in the regularly scheduled meetings. The request was ignored. basically to your detriment and to our detriment as townspeople, especially as at least one trustee didn't know there were changes from the first draft. And I don't blame her for being unprepared with such little time to prepare. What poses a danger to our small town representative government is that the same trustee who hadn't read the changes went ahead and voted on the issue. I'm also noting inconsistencies in the meeting minutes. Last meeting's minutes characterized me as upset. I was going to disagree, but please keep it in there, especially when a threat to your hikers from your June meeting was not even mentioned in the minutes. Allow me to recap. I will be up there, Mount Dewey, this weekend, and I will be armed and I will be pissed. This is shocking, but most troubling of all, trustees, is at your very next meeting, you voted to appoint the same threatening individual to represent our town's Park, Recreation, and Trail Committee with no discussion whatsoever. So thank you, trustees. Thank you for increasing our political consciousness of the residents, business owners, and summer visitors. Trustees and town manager, you have our full scrutiny. Thanks for your time.
Okay, thank you. Who's next?
Next on the list, we have Dick Bratton. And please unmute yourself and state your name and address for the record.
I'll pass.
Thanks, Dick. Dick, I do appreciate your comments and for helping with that earlier. Thank you. Who is the next person on the list?
Next, we have Lamar Matthews Douglas and David Douglas.
All right.
This is Lamar Matthews Douglas at 11145 Hondo. I just have this comment. I think that we have an amazing gift with COVID. We have a window, we have money, and we have an opportunity to really clean up the situation that's really below COVID and is really causing the frustrations. It's very likely that without COVID next summer, we will have all the same issues if we do not use this window wisely and the extra COVID money that we have to really clean this up. We have one marshal, as I understand it, maybe there's others, but to my knowledge, just one paid marshal. It's not humanly possible for him to manage and control the numbers of people that are coming up. And I think this will continue, whether it's this summer, next summer, the summer after that. And we need to put a program in place that works with this ambassador system as a wonderful opportunity. And I'm happy to serve on the advisory committee or whatever it is to help put together something that's going to be really positive for this town.
All right, thank you.
And then David Douglas.
I pass.
Okay. Next on the list, there's Clay Gafford. You'll need to unmute yourself, and then if you would please state your name and address for the record. Just checking the list here. I'm not seeing Clay in the list, and that was the last person on our list.
All right. Let me circle around. We did not discuss passing the CARES budget. And I think I know what I am interested in, perhaps Gianni was too, I'll let you speak for yourself.
Get the
Is
list.
Pardon me?
Hello?
Mac, were you on the list?
Yes, I was.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry
I
about
thought that was the end of the list, so I stepped all over you. So go ahead.
All right,
That's my fault, sorry.
no problem.
Max used to be. Man.
Okay. I believe the town should make every parking space that is not on private property a special permitted use only. The cost to print window stickers for the residents would be minimal. Business owners and the church should be given temporary parking permits hung from the rearview mirror to loan to their non-resident customers. Summer rentals should have the same privilege. Temporary parking permits could then be made available to hikers and other users at a cost commensurate with the cost of collecting the fees, policing the parking, cleanup, restrooms if necessary, or any other cost associated with their use, thereby giving the town the ability to control the number of people using the parking. All others should be ticketed or towed or both, depending on the circumstances. Townspeople should not have to bear the cost of any of this. They already pay taxes for pretty much the bare necessities. Most people, including hikers and fishermen / women, let the cost of their activity dictate the frequency of that activity. Anyone who lives between Manitou Springs and Woodland Park knows it ain't cheap. It costs more to live here, and we pay it because we love it here. But we shouldn't have to pay a nickel for someone to have a day trip just to leave their lunch trash or their dog crap or their own crap in our town. I don't want to hear anyone who doesn't know or care what it takes to live here to complain about having to walk to the trailhead when they're here for a hike. Or listen to moaning about no toilets when I just paid $400 to have my septic tank pumped, especially when I have to spend my time picking up trash they let blow away in the wind on their hike. I don't mind folks having a good time as long as it doesn't cost me anything. If it does, I'm gonna want to know why. Earlier, Mr. Fry and Dick Bratton referred to taxes that the hikers would pay, the enormous amount of money that hikers pay in taxes. Unless you have some empirical data, I don't think you can use that argument. I don't think hikers pay much of anything. Point is, they bring their own food, they bring their own drink, they leave their trash, they leave their dog crap, and it's that's just wrong. There needs to be a way to control that. Please don't use that as a reason for keeping the trails open, because the hikers don't bring much money. That being said, I'm concerned that although there are 5 members of the Board of Trustees, only 4 show up for most meetings. That's 80% efficiency when they show up. The trustee who doesn't show up at very many meetings should be asked to resign. He's dead weight. I'm pretty sure the rule about unexcused absences applies here. Frankly, there's no excuse for missing so many meetings except when you don't care. I'm sure because of the last few meetings that there are probably numerous residents who care enough to participate. You should get rid of the dead weight and find someone who gives a damn about Green Mountain Falls. Thank you.
Mac, thank you, and I apologize again for stepping on you. I thought we were out of public comment.
I also had my name on the list, and I'd like to take my chance.
All right.
Thank you. So Judith Piazza, 11160 Belvedere Avenue. And the reason I wanted to comment here, I want to repeat something I said earlier about asking CSU when you have that meeting with them, Angie, is it possible that we could shift their work and the subsequent closing of Hondo until after the main hiking season is over? I think that would be really wise. And then another is, I've heard a lot tonight about volunteerism and about if we don't have the community behind us. And within these 2 weeks, I've seen the board dishonor and take apart a group of volunteers that were willing to do and have done so much dedicated work to the trails. And we're even willing, and I'm not on the trails committee, so I just will say that, but I also volunteer on the trails whenever I can. And to not use, and with such appreciation and gratitude to this group of 11 members who were ready, willing, able to do so much of what we're just talking about. They were willing to advise. They're willing to go up and build new bridges. They're willing to clean up. We've done so much cleanup that people are complaining about, but really for me, I hike these trails a lot. I don't see up leveling of any trash. I'm surprised at how clean the trails look with so many hikers on them. But really, this idea that we would have ousted 11 volunteers, they were giving their time and dedicated skill to helping the town. That just doesn't make sense to me.
All right, thank you.
So do you have to be on the list to say anything? This is Mike Barrett here.
Mike, go ahead.
Yeah, just real quick. Mike Barrett, 10610 Green Mountain Falls Road. And there's been a lot of good things said here today, and I appreciate hearing it all. And I think it's point counterpoint, and it's all good stuff. I like the hiking. One of the things that we haven't really talked about is with the influx of all of these additional people, there's a tremendous amount of traffic and tremendous amount of speeding. And I've talked to the marshal about it, and you know, we're on key. He's only one guy. So I just wanted to throw that out there, and you know, maybe we could even reduce the speed limit even more, because it is a danger. And with part of the hiking trails in Green Mountain Falls, you have to go from a trail to a trail, and there's a white line painted there that indicates that's where the hikers go. And there's a picture of a hiker, and the cars, they do not slow down. They don't. And you guys know where I live. Some of you do. And I'm at a bad part of the town, and we're talking about moving the blinking sign. But I just wanted to bring that up. It hasn't been talked about very much. And the other thing is I really wanted to give kudos to Virgil, and hopefully we can pass the word that folks would stop trashing the poor guy on Facebook. And thank you for giving me a minute.
Thanks, Mike. I really appreciate that. All right. Is that it for public comment, Angie?
That's all I've got on my list.
All right. I do want to circle back around so we can pass the CARES budget. I think we've heard a lot, and it would really justify hiring the temporary, what word am I looking for, Angie?
Looking into hiring a temporary unbudgeted officer.
Yeah, I think it would make a lot of sense, Virgil, because frankly, we've had a huge influx. And when you look at the incline was closed for whatever reason, I assume it's COVID. Waldo's been closed. It's really increased our traffic. I would have an argument there for the CARES people that that's a good part of the reason. And I would really like to see a pursuit of an unbudgeted officer, just so we can get some help, especially through the summer months, and that would be before September 1st. And that is my my idea and proposal for passing this CARES Act. So I will make that a motion to pass with emphasis on an unbudgeted officer.
I'll second.
Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please vote by saying aye.
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 Are there any opposed? Well, that motion passes.
And if I may just clarify, the reworking of this would be a 20, I would basically be putting in a unbudgeted officer. We would have to pass an ordinance for that at the next meeting. And then we could apply for the FEMA funds to reimburse us at 75-25. And we would just have to move some things around in here and find that 25% to match.
Well, I trust you to do that as our budget expert. And board, do you have any other comments with that?
Yeah, I don't really know exactly what the relationship was, but I thought there were some kind of deputies that had to keep a certain amount of time to keep their credentials. They had to have a number of hours of service. In the past, I thought that was a way that reinforced the office that we had service summer. I don't know what the status is of that program, but it seemed like it was great for the town. It was affordable, and they were able to serve when we needed it the most.
We still have 2 very active reserves, and they do help provide coverage. For my own self, I know, however, that sometimes a little money helps get a little more hours.
Yeah.
Is Virgil on the line still? Virgil, are you there?
I'm here.
Virgil, can you contribute to that a little bit?
Yeah. Excuse me. I asked my reserve officers to spend 20 hours a month in town doing things. However, one of them is a resident of Colorado Springs, and he tends to have to work doing a lot of the follow-up that involves issues here in town or crimes here in town that filter down to the Springs. The other one is Sean Goings, who works up at Woodland Park with the school district. He just had knee surgery, which put him out for about 4 weeks. And he called me today and told me that he had fallen over a stump and injured his wrist, and he may end up having to be out for another period of time due to the injury. My thought on the whole thing is, if I get 5 hours a month out of these guys, that's 5 hours I wouldn't have had otherwise. If they don't live up to their 20 hours a month, honestly, and I would ask the board this, what am I supposed to do? Fire them? I can't keep them from, or hold their feet to the fire unless there's payment involved. And if payment's involved, then yeah, I'd fire them in a heartbeat. But the bottom line is if I get 10, 15 hours out of a person a month, I'm good with that.
Hey, Virgil?
Yes.
Oh, sorry. And can you reiterate, because we had this conversation this weekend, and my question to Virgil was, well, why can't we get more? And could you please reiterate the reason why we can't just immediately find more reserves?
Well, number one, I'm very picky about the people who are going to be protecting our town. And I'm not going to just hire some lunkhead, for lack of a better term, that's going to be driving around in one of my police cars and not doing the things that I expect out of him, the things that you expect out of him. I won't settle for anybody less than a post-certified officer. I had a really promising applicant who hasn't turned in his application yet, but who knows, maybe he will at some point in time once the part-time job allows him to. It's very difficult, Margaret. I'm sorry, Trustee Peterson. It's very difficult to find the type of people that I want working in my town.
Virgil, before we pass this, would it be helpful to have some salary put out there, even for a temp part-time? Or
Would,
would it just
I'm sorry, Mayor.
So we're looking at funding a temp part-time person. They wouldn't be here for a long time, but they'd be a little bit of a warm body with a little bit of salary to help manage, especially during this next month. Would that be helpful to you? Would that be too much work to you? I don't want to pass something that's just not helpful.
No, actually, it would be absolutely helpful. Absolutely and totally helpful. I have already talked to Pete Peterson and Sean Goings about this, and rather than one individual person, if I could get a set number of hours that you as a board would allow, and that the budget would, or the potential budget would allow for, they would both be willing to split the hours, and that way I do have a little bit of teeth where I could hold their feet to the fire. If you're not here on these days, then why not? And so on and so forth. May I go ahead and make another statement here real quickly?
Of course.
Okay. I've been listening in on this, and I have heard a tremendous amount of backup and support for my office. Community policing is not about the marshal or a police officer doing everything that they allow or whatever. Community policing is about a community involvement. I've heard Miss Davies talk about things, and I love the thought of some volunteers being involved. I love the thought of people getting involved with their community and not always pointing to my office saying, well, that's up to the marshal to do, that's up to the marshal to do, that's up to the marshal to do. It's not all up to me to do, nor can I do it all. Michael Barrett stated it best. I'm one person. I do the best I can. I work a lot of hours that nobody knows about. Mayor, you mentioned I'm out, trying to beat bag bears to harass them to get them out of town. This is kind of champagne taste on a beer budget, and I am trying to hang into that budget. I'm trying everything I can to make this happen and to make the town safe. It's tough. It's disheartening sometimes, but I will guarantee you one thing: the rewards for me personally, getting to work in this town and having the opportunity to work in this town, are amazing. I go home most days with a full heart.
Good. So I have a question regarding post-certification.
Yes, ma'am.
And Angie, this is a question for you and for Virgil. Could we justify some of the CARES funding if we've got a candidate that's worthy for reserves? Could we justify some of the CARES funding to help with the costs that are involved in the certification? Because I know that's a costly process.
Okay, may I address that? That is huge. That's a huge amount of money that we don't need to spend as a town. I've got 2 guys that are already post certified,
Okay.
both of them who are willing to work up here. In fact, I'd probably have 3 if there was, and you and I know that everything boils down to money. And I probably got 3 people who would be willing to split the hours, all of whom I trust, and all of whom are good, solid police officers.
And they're already certified, so we don't have to worry about that part then. Yeah, that was my only suggestion, just to see if that's a roadblock, if it's a possible, because again, I understand with CARES, you need to be creative sometimes, but you have to justify what the expenditure is. So that's fine. Thank you.
Yeah, and trustee, honestly, if we spend the money to get somebody certified and send them through the academy and everything else, they're going to leave us within probably 6 months for greener pastures.
Okay.
I've had personal experience with this. The university department that I worked out down south was just basically a stepping stone to someplace else, and I don't want to see that happen.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, Virgil, really, thank you a lot for that. I think people don't always realize the length and breadth you go for this town, and I really appreciate that. Angie, can you work with Virgil maybe with this budget and see what can work out for CARES, what we can do to assist the department?
Yeah, so an unbudgeted position, we could actually get FEMA funds for that, and we would only need a 25% match, and FEMA would cover 75%. So it would just be a small rework. If I have, the majority board's permission, which I think we already got that with the last motion, was to just move forward with it and get it done as best we can within the constraints, and just move a few things around to make that happen. We'll work on.
Can we use CARES for the match?
Yeah. Yes. So we can. Yep. So we just need to find that 25% of whatever is going to help meet some of those needs for Virgil. Obviously, we probably need more than just a part-time person to really meet those needs, but I think everybody, all the staff is pretty stretched thin and working at a, pretty high level already as is, but we will try to, we stretch it as far as we can. We just keep on getting up every day and trying harder.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I do. There's a lot of work that goes into this. So thank you. That is passed. What is the next item on the agenda?
I think we're just already down to the correspondence.
We certainly are. So the DOLA Planning Code Rewrite Grant Award Letter, we were awarded money from DOLA to match the money that we were awarded from Historic Greenmount Falls. Is that correct? And we
Kirkpatrick.
Oh, from Kirkpatrick. Thank you. And we can proceed with the code rewrite. For people like me that really likes code, that's an exciting thing. But it's going to fall mostly on Angie. But fortunately, she loves writing code too. Additionally, we did receive a letter of appreciation from the marshal. If you got to see that in the packet, that is it's a cool letter, and it's signed by a whole lot of fire chiefs, and it's written, sent on behalf of the following agencies, signed by the Florissant Fire Protection District. And I would just echo their sentiment. Our law enforcement officers are not always appreciated, especially in these times around the country where they're looked at differently. Our marshal really goes above and beyond, and I appreciate his work and his professionalism every day. Item 8 is reports. We have covered most of anything I was going to say. I did want to clear up a very small item. I did speak in a mayor's forum and I drew a blank when it came to the comp plan, but actually the board has been working quite a bit on different items on the comp plan, as has our staff. I would like to note in particular the grant writing that Deani and Catherine are both doing. There's a lot of good things in the works, and we're looking at grants that will help in our downtown district. Pathways around the lake. There's always more money being put out there or asked for. I really appreciate it. I also want to say that, you know, big picture, we have had a lot of discussion about trails. And in some ways, we have been treated kindly and unkindly in social media. And at the end of the day, I want to say that I'm really thankful that that is really the hot ticket item in Green Mountain Falls, because there's a lot of people out there that are suffering a lot worse than we are. If that's our hot button and we can come together and we can discuss it as civilized human beings in this town, I'm very appreciative. That's not to downplay any of the bad things that's going on anywhere at all. You know, I think that's something you think about and you know is happening in your heart. But thankful for Green Mountain Falls, thankful for the community that does come together and has opinions that they find very important. Margaret, you have any report?
Well, just talking about coming together, Saturday is Bronc Day. Very low key, very, very socially conscious. Please bring your mask. We're just gonna have a little kitty pet parade down by the lake. We'll have vendors. We're encouraging people to get lunch at one of the restaurants. You know, we're not trying to move forward with a big, huge event. We're moving forward cautiously and safely. And we just want people to have the opportunity to just come visit for a minute, get out of the house, and to keep our tradition going. You know, the original Bronc Day was people sitting around saying, hey, let's go ride a horse down to Cascade to celebrate the race, you know. So in a way, we're getting back to our roots this year, but we just want to keep it going. But we are definitely going to ask people wear your masks and distance, and just please help us out with that. And that's about it. I have a question, and Angie, I hope that this is part of your report. As far as like what's going on with the lake, if we've got any updates for that. So I'm hoping that you have. It's more of a question than a report. So.
Okay. Madam Mayor, if I may.
Please.
Okay, so basically the guys have been down there. There've been a lot of fish that have perished. Most of those fish had large hooks in them. The lake, the fountain is operational. It was down for about a week. We're not really sure what's going on with them, but it is something that we're working on and trying to figure out why those fish passed away. But the ones that were deceased had very large hooks that were left in them. And then a goose passed away. It had a whole bunch of fishing line in its mouth and around its neck, which was really unfortunate. And then we had another goose that was hit by a car, and it appeared that someone may have put it behind a bush or a rock, or they put it behind something. So we just are asking that people be really careful down there and respect the wildlife. And I think it's probably pretty unlikely that anybody that lived here is disrespecting the wildlife, because we all have been living around the wildlife for a long time. But it could be some visitors. We don't really know who or how, what that, yeah. And there are trash receptacles down there. We just ask that everybody carry in what they or carry out what they carry in, or if they don't want it, please throw it in the trash.
Yeah, common sense, you know. Catherine, do you have a report? Yeah, you have to unmute yourself because now I'm just reading your lips.
Just working on grants, and I concerned about holding up any grants that are already in the works, because I'm still trying to figure out what the most appropriate grants are for a couple of aspects of the lake project. So I guess all I can report is that that I don't think it's a good idea to wait on my numbers, because I don't know when I'm going to get them. Some of the project we don't have estimates on, and and I know that that the grant that Trustee Lou has worked on is time sensitive, and so if she could get the proper advice about that. I'm not the one to give it, but I certainly don't want to hold things up. I've been mostly focused on chamber business this week, and hopefully we'll have a better idea of where we stand with the local businesses by the end of the week, and see if that's a viable path to take with the CARES grant. We should know soon.
That's great. That's great. And I think it's a good opportunity for our businesses. So thank you for working on that. Chris, do you have a report?
Hi, Mayor. I do not at this time. I would say that I will be attending more of these regularly.
All right. You like the Zoom meetings.
Yeah, they're great.
All right. Tiani?
So I just wanted to, again, put a plug out for the Summer of Good Neighbors website. I think that, right now is challenging time for everyone in the world, really. But I think focusing on the positives and the opportunities that we have during this time can help us move forward. And right now, like we've mentioned, there are grant opportunities, and there are a lot of ideas for creating both short-term and long-term solutions to some of the problems we're facing. So I just want to encourage everyone to try and get involved with that process, because now is a time where we can make some changes. And those changes, they are going to take a while to take effect, but I think that we're moving in the right direction. And so, I just want to thank everyone who's been present, everyone who showed up, everyone who's been participating. Keep doing that. Tell your neighbors. If people don't know about the opportunity to talk here and participate, let them know how to get involved.
That's great. Thank you. Angie, do you have a report?
And I just want to echo what Trustee Lou mentioned and say that please keep an eye out for that parking and signage survey that's going to be coming out soon. Volunteer applications, we definitely need volunteer time, even if you just have a half a Saturday to give us to help us map some signage. And we have a lot of really good things in the works. The problems didn't start yesterday. They've been in the making for years. So it's going to take some time to work them out, but we have an opportunity to do that right now. And I feel like we're really getting some good dialogue, and we're working on it. So put in the right direction. And I just want to thank the trustees for all their support in this, and everybody that showed up here tonight to bring comments.
That's great. Thank you. Victor has a report tonight.
I just wanted to comment on how many applications and volunteers have already signed up. I want to say that in just the last week and just the last 5 business days, we've actually had at least 12. There's already 5 applications that will be at least in the next board meeting. There's already 5 different numbers that have already come in, and I'm sure more have come in from this meeting as is, but we easily have over a dozen people in just the last few days who are all stepping up to the plate to help volunteer and help out. So that's awesome.
That is awesome. Victor's
Keep sending in applications though. Don't
Yes.
stop sending in applications. Keep
Never
sending.
stop. Never stop. Virgil,
Yeah, we can always find something for people to do.
Oh, no doubt. We'll play to your strengths. Virgil, do you have any further report?
I think I pretty much said everything that I needed to say, other than I would appreciate anybody who chooses to back the blue at this particular time.
Yes, sir. I am there. Do we have any further reports from anyone? Seeing none, let's adjourn this meeting. The time is 9:37. Thank you, everybody.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, you're gonna call Ralph?
Did he ask for me to call?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Well, I said, I gotta go because Ned's gonna be talking next. And so he said, I was too passionate over everything